Welcome to the Alien Probe Podcast. I'm Doug, and joining me today is JC, a bona fide witness.
Hi, Doug.
What's going on? You can see yourself? See
Yeah, very cool.
Look at that. Last time we had JC on here, we did it with the phone in the game room, and the audio was horrific. And I don't know why. I thought
For the first few minutes it was. It cleaned up pretty quick, though. Must have just been the angle on the phone or something that
might have been
changed.
Yeah, this is a drinking episode.
Cheers.
Cheers, buddy. JC's a bona fide witness. And we have a diagram of what he saw. What you saw.
I mean,
what you saw.
For what I saw, yeah, it still is kind of baffling. It's something I think about like every day, because I don't know if like people that see things in the sky, if they, maybe they see it. I guess I don't know. I guess a lot of people probably do see it from their home. Right, but a lot of people see them they're out driving around, or they're camping, or they're visiting somewhere, or they're on the desert, or they're hunting, fishing, camping. They see something strange. I don't know. It seems like that, but for me, it's like when I saw mine, it was a year in October 17th. So
right,
and it was like I do that same thing every day. I feed my dog. And I walk him outside afterwards. And I walk outside my house. And ever since that day, it's like I look up at the sky at that same position where I saw that thing. And it's like I never, I don't see it anymore. It's not there. Especially when the weather was like it was, to start the year this year for us. When we had all that crazy weather. Because it was kind of a crazy weather day when I saw what I saw.
I thought about you when it stormed. Because we talked about it on the other episode how the power was out 3 days, but I thought about you. I thought this is the kind of weather.
Yeah, it was really, really windy.
Because people, I guess, don't typically come out and look at the sky. I guess.
Yeah, I mean everybody's kind of sheltering in place when that stuff was.
They're in their house
on those extreme weather events, But Dr. Bill, rest in peace. It was interesting in that episode. He said something to the effect of. When he heard my description of it, which was, it was kind of like an upside down boat with the box on the rear end of it, on the lower part of it. And he was kind of like saying that that was, similar to a hypersonic missile is what, he had mentioned.
That's
in that. And so I was like, it was, I want to see what that looks like. So I went and I looked at, some photos of renderings of what the hypersonic missiles are like, and they're more of like a cruise missile, right? They're sort of a flat missile with fins, and then they've got kind of an air dam thing like on the bottom and the rear that's you can definitely tell it's sort of some sort of hood scoop air dam, whatever. It looks like the front end of an old Cobra, from that has that opening. But
how big was it?
Yeah, mine wasn't. It wasn't like that. It definitely wasn't like a hypersonic missile. It didn't have any fins or anything like that. I swear that I think it was like, as big as like a full size pickup truck or a good sized fishing boat. Like the kind of fishing boat that you would own, and not like a charter boat, but something like that you would own.
Like 30 feet.
Yeah, maybe, something like that, like a full-size pickup truck. And, I tell you, and it was, the thing that I remember about it just was how black it was, and how black and how sinister looking it was. It had this, because I remember, when it was coming at me, like I told you, I was like, what the heck is that? It was like, at first I thought it was a bird, and it was getting larger. And it looked like a square with a pointy roof, like a small child would draw a house.
Yeah.
Just like a block with a little pointy roof on it. And then it just kind of, as it got closer to me and got larger, and it kind of morphed shape, and to the point where it was right above me, and I could really see it from the side, and that it had this, really pointed front end, and it was almost like a hood that came to a point in the middle, and all the way to the back where there was this box underneath the rear end, like this perfectly square box. And, it didn't make a sound. and it was blacker than black, and it looked sinister, it looked ominous, and it was moving so slow, and it was not moving at all on that wind. And the winds of that day were, they were 80 mile an hour winds or whatever it was. It was crazy, and this thing wasn't buffeting at all in the wind. It wasn't changing its plane or its pitch or its yaw at all. It was just cruising, and it was perfectly still, and it wasn't affected by the wind at all. It wasn't it was just, but it did look very sinister. And
was it headed toward the base?
You know what? It was headed because the power was out, right? So the power was out from East Sacramento all the way through parts of here in Carmichael, all the way to Folsom. Yeah. It was I think it was 37,000 people were without power, basically along the river. And where this thing was trajectorying was from the west of me to just slightly northeast of me. So it probably came right over your house. I was looking at the map.
You're right across the river.
I'm right across the river from you, a little bit west. Yeah. Right, I'm really close, and so it was trajectorying from where I am, just south of. So it was probably closer to Watt Avenue when I first saw it, and then it was basically coming right along the river at a sort of northeastern trajectory, like a shallow northeastern trajectory.
It was daylight though.
It was the sun was setting, but it was still light out enough that I could see it. So dusk. It was, like I said, because there was a storm coming in, and as the sun was setting, it was refracting all this beautiful pink and purple and orange light off of that storm that was coming on the clouds to the southwest, and this thing was just kind of sitting in the open sky and moving really slow. And like I said, it looked like a bird at first until the point that it was this big object over my house.
Made no noise, obviously. Of course, it's windy. You probably couldn't hear anything.
No noise, and I could hear, the sound of the wind whipping through the trees, and it's funny because, again, like we were talking about this most recent weather events that we had. I went out there too, and I was like, I've got these, those Italian pines that are like those tall, skinny ones that they grow really, really tall and pointy. And there's I walk right out of my house, and there's a couple houses over, there's 3 of them that are really high in the air. And I walk out of my house, and when it's windy, I look right up at those things, and I just see them moving. Yeah. It's that's how it was that day, and that's how it was during these most recent storms that we had. And it's just. Yeah, you can definitely hear the wind whipping through the trees, but it wasn't so loud that it would obscure the sound of a craft that was flying over, the sound that it should make. I mean, when I first saw it, I was like, "What the hell is that? Is that a piece of garbage flying in the sky? Is that a homeless person's tent?
Yeah,
is that
put it back up again?
Yeah, and it
doesn't really. It looks like a drone almost. I mean,
if you can imagine that, and so at the bottom part is a square, like a perfect cube, and then that's looking at it directly from the side. But if you can imagine that from the top part of it, it's crescent to a point in the top, like a boat would be, right? So it's a boat, and then lever down the side. So if you're looking at that thing coming at you from the front, it would look like that little kid's house, right?
Right.
All you would see was the square and then the point at the top. So I don't know what the hell it was, Doug. I don't know what the hell it was.
No lights?
No lights. And like I said, black. Blacker than black.
Sinister.
Sinister looking, like they did, like I had mentioned in our first time we sat down, there was a study that I had read about a long time ago where scientists were trying to discover the most darkest color possible, which obviously is black.
Right.
But the darkest shade of black.
Yeah.
And that's what this was like. It was like darkness. I mean, it was so pitch black. There was no shine on it at all. It was just flat, matte black, just
That would
almost hard to describe, right? Because you couldn't see any. It wasn't bright enough that I could see. I mean, it was bright enough that I could see it perfectly, but I couldn't see any detail beyond the shapes.
You're a pretty good artist. It's not
No,
bad.
I think that's I wish I was a better artist. I think that's a horrible rendition. But yeah, man, I don't know. It's just it's something I think about all the time. It was a year in October, and it's like I make that trip with my dog every day, and I look at that same spot in the sky.
5:43 p.m. in 2021, October 17th.
Yeah, yeah. So we just passed the
Is
1
that
year anniversary
Dr.
of it.
Bill's alien probe technical information sheet? We got to give a shout out to Bill, even though he's not with us anymore.
Yeah.
And he was disappointed that he wanted to make sure when I had talked to you that we filled out all the information.
Is there stuff? Oh no. So did we fill out everything?
I don't think we did, but I think we got the high points.
Okay. Okay. Good. I never did, and I never did report it to anyone. I never went on the MUFON or anything. I just, you know what? The reason that I didn't do it, and it's like I told you before, it's like, and I'm not worried about anybody thinking I'm a crackpot or anything like that, like we're talking about. I mean, I can care less what people think of me. I'm old enough that I'm confident in who I am and stable enough on my job and all that kind of stuff, right?
It's always the employment.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about that. What's the owner of your company going to think? And then,
Yeah.
But I think anymore people don't lend.
Yeah.
They don't care. It's like, it's odd that you find people that, and I have people like this in my family. And in fact, my wife's one of these people, is that I don't really care what's going. I'm like, something's going on up there, you know? Mm-hmm. And, you know, we need to find out what's going on. It's like, they don't really think, it's just don't really care, you know, what's going on up there.
Yeah.
And then now we've got we've shot down 4 of these. One of them we know was a Chinese balloon, but what were the other 3?
You know what? I mean, we know that it was a balloon, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that we know that it's a Chinese balloon. I think that, you know, I don't really believe.
Oh, that's a good point.
I don't believe a word that the State Department says about anything or the Defense Department says about anything. You know, I mean, if our government has proven one thing since JFK was assassinated, is that you can't believe a word that they say, right?
Yeah.
They're going to tell you what they want you to hear, and so, you know, who knows what that who craft that actually belonged to, and what it was doing. You know, we'll see, or maybe we won't. But yeah, these other ones that all of a sudden started happening in a flurry over the weekend that's a little bit strange. You know, I think the first one that I heard about was I think the first one that they shot down somewhere over Alaska, and they said, so the Chinese one, right, was at 60,000 feet.
Yes.
And nobody flies at 60,000 feet, so that wasn't a threat to anybody, right? That's one of the reasons that they let it go, because they said that there was no jeopardy for commercial traffic at all. But this one was the one in Alaska was at 40,000 feet.
Yeah.
Right, and they talked about how the fighter jets were flying alongside of it, or that one of them was flying alongside of it. One of them fired, like the first time they fired on it was unsuccessful.
Yeah, they missed.
Right?
Do you know how much those things cost?
Yeah, there was something like $60,000.
No, they're $500,000 a piece. So they
Hellfire missile,
wasted
whatever.
$500,000.
Yeah, like nothing of our dollars shooting at God only knows what.
Yeah.
But there's 2 things that I found really interesting about that. One is that they specifically said that they were flying alongside of it at 40,000 feet.
So
right?
Is it going Mach?
Right. So how fast is that fighter jet going, and how fast is this thing going?
I don't think the slowest they go is probably 400.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So is this thing moving at that speed? And if so, is that? I think that excludes it being a balloon, right?
Well, you never know if these comments are real or not. And the comment I heard by one of the pilots, he couldn't figure out how the thing stayed aloft.
Yeah.
Which indicates that it was moving. It wasn't a balloon.
Yeah.
More than likely. Right. It was a cylinder.
Yeah.
That one was a cylinder.
Okay.
They shot it down.
It was like a metallic cylinder, they said.
And he said they shot it down over, he didn't say, but they reported that it got shot down over the Yukon, which is a very inhospitable.
Right.
And if you shoot, so I never understood either, even with the Chinese balloon, why they have to shoot a missile at it? Why do they have to?
Right.
They didn't want to get. I don't think they wanted to get too close to it. Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, that might have been a thing.
That might have been.
But you got to launch a major rock, something that'll take down another jet at a balloon.
Yeah.
There's not going to be much left. There's not going to be much left of those other ones.
Yeah. So, and then the second thing is if they did fire a missile at it and they missed it, with all of our technology and, with these things, they zoom into on a target and they hone in and they get it, right? Especially if something, this thing must have had some evasive capabilities is kind of what I'm thinking. So for when they miss it, right? Because it wasn't just it should have been that.
So where'd the missile go?
Well, where'd the missile go? Who knows? But like the first one that they shot down was over Alaska somewhere, but it was over. They said it was over frozen part of the ocean or the lake. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know that, and they thought that would be a good chance to recover it because it was over this frozen thing. Then I think the next one was over.
It was a frozen lake. Yeah.
And then the next one, then there was like two more. I'm just getting so much. Who's counting anymore, right?
Yeah, there was 3. The last one was Lake Superior. They splashed. I mean, if they shoot it into a bunch of pieces, they're never going to find it.
Yeah, I mean, they're having problems finding the Chinese parts of the Chinese.
Yeah, and it was only in 40 feet of water.
Yeah, so who knows what's going on with that.
They're lying,
Yeah,
the government's lying.
So before we were talking, I mentioned that new show on Nat Geo did a really, really good job, kind of revisiting some of the stuff that we already know with Colonel David Fravor, and his wingman was that woman pilot, and talking with Lou Elizondo
the thing about those shows are, and I'm watching one called, I can't remember the name of this, George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell. They're doing a podcast type show.
Yeah.
And they just talk about this. It's like they start a new show. It's almost for money, because they start a new show and they just talk about the stuff that we already know about.
Yeah, yeah.
They're not offering up anything new.
Yeah.
It's always the same stories. It's Roswell. It's all the different stories that it's Lazar.
Yeah.
Because that's George Knapp's claim. One of his claims of fame is, bringing Lazar to the forefront.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. It being the guy.
I just think it's a money grab sometimes.
Sometimes I could see how you think that, because it does get.
I want something new.
But I think that what I was kind of pointing at is that they did a really, really good job in this episode of really outlining how those Tic Tacs with the Nimitz, how they moved. So they did some really good stuff digitally to show you like the kind of movements that these were making.
Yeah.
Versus what the planes that were up there watching them could do.
Yeah.
Versus how these things were moving around, and that gets back to the point about these things in Alaska or over Canada in the north that we're having encounters with right now with our military, that they're being effectively shot down. Just to a certain extent, they've shot them all down. I don't know that those are the same things.
Yeah.
Because they don't seem to have the maneuverability. Although they seem to have some, because if they're flying alongside them at 40,000 feet,
I don't know how,
and not flying around them, right? That's like so. And then shooting them down.
Are they keeping up with this thing? I mean,
yeah, I don't know what's
weird.
going on. It's kind of there's some open things that need answering there, because I think that. The technology that these things that they saw, off the coast of California down there, south, down off our southern coast, the Tic Tacs, those things had a maneuverability that's unlike anything that we possibly could fathom. And they did, like I said, that's what I was getting, is they did a really good job of kind of expanding on that and what that actually looks like. They did a good digital rendition of it with some mapping and some digital lines.
Those things were pretty fuzzy too. There was talk at one point that those things weren't actually Tic Tacs, that they were actually a different design. They were they look like a Tic Tac because of the footage you're seeing, but they're
Yeah.
actually something else.
Yeah.
I don't want to say a classic UFO, but I mean, or a flying saucer,
Right.
but something oval or something like the Roswell. You know, Roswell was just, they were egg shaped.
Yeah.
I mean, people talk about Roswell over the years that it's, and I talk like I know for sure, but from the interviews, and Richard Doty, who we've grown to listen to now.
Mm-hmm.
Roswell, they're just egg shaped. You know, they're not, you know, not the cool flying saucer looking thing that we want them to see.
Right.
You know.
Well, you know, you guys talked a little bit about one of the things one of the events that I've always been fascinated with was Rendlesham.
Mm-hmm.
You guys talked a little bit about that last episode, and that's one that really is. I think that's a really important one.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, the fact that it happened on a American base, you know, in Europe and England, and the guys that saw that and what they said and how they went back out there and it was still there, and you know, the small craft with the writing on it and all that stuff.
And this is the one where the guy touched it and he got the binary code.
Is that what they say? So I haven't heard that part.
Yeah,
of it. Yeah.
I think I don't want to confuse it with one of the other ones out back there, but
it freaked those guys out. Like the guys that found it were just, you know, just like guards. Like they were, you know, they were grunts basically that found it, and they called their commander or whatever out there. And,
yeah, we got some weird stuff going on.
Yeah, so that was cool that you guys touched on that. I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about, and I never had it, and it's something that I went down a rabbit hole years and years and years ago about the 37th parallel.
Yeah.
Like the UFO superhighway. North America's, you know, the United States' UFO superhighway, which I thought was really, really cool. And I kind of forgot about it and just thought about it recently because, you know, where we are, it kind of just goes like right to the south of us, right?
Yeah.
Like we're pretty close to it. And one of the things that I had read years ago, and I wanted to ask if you've ever heard anything about it, is that like the black triangles where the
TR3Bs,
the TR3Bs or whatever, that one of the places that those are seen the most is in the Sierra Nevada foothills.
Oh, really?
And I read this, that one of the theories was that they are in the Sierra Nevada foothills and they're because they need gold. And that like that, whatever those crafts are, they're in them. That's one of the places that they're seeing the most, and that they're out there getting gold, which is.
I haven't heard that, but it's I don't discount anything.
Yeah, I mean, I read that somewhere years ago, and I always thought that was kind of fascinating. I've never seen one of those things, but
yeah,
it's not like I've seen one thing, and it was weird. But and then the other part of it, like. On the East Coast, and I did some research before we came out here, and it didn't really talk about it, but it was just that some research I did on my own was I can't remember what the name of it is. It's like the Smoky Mountain Lights or something like that. It's like in northwestern North Carolina.
Yeah.
Which there's like a phenomena with lights in those mountains that's been going on for millennia. That people have seen, and there's no explanation of lights flying around those mountains. That's like right on the 37th parallel too. Like it goes just south of there.
Could be an electromagnetic thing.
Who knows? But they did
something like that.
There was a movie years ago. I can't remember the name of it, but it was a pretty good sci-fi movie, alien kind of experience movie that they did, and I always thought it was based on that. It was like some kids.
That'd be interesting, dude.
In some hills, up into the hills.
Map that out and see what's on that. What's gone on.
Yeah, well, I mean, when they talk like in that article, they talked to you like Dolce's on it, right? Which you guys talked about. Now, is Dolce the one where, like you guys talked about it, that the guys they went and they broke into a cave and they got into a big firefight with underground aliens or reptilians or something like that. Yeah, it was on
Archuleta Mesa.
And that's New Mexico?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it's right by Los Alamos.
Okay.
Dolce is a little town. Yeah. They call it Dolce, but it's not really in Dolce. It's in this Mesa.
Yeah.
And that's where they surmise that they built this. But Doty, he was in the intelligence in the Air Force, he talks to other people in intelligence, and he says, we can't figure out if this dude is not really saying everything is admitting everything that he knows, or if he's discounting things on purpose. There could have been tunnels in there. I read a really good science fiction book about this, and then I knew the story. The other thing was one of the guys got a contractor that was drilling in there. They drilled into another tunnel that had these.
It wasn't that where how the story broke? Was like it was the
and they got in a firefight, and then they all of a sudden they got in a firefight, and then all of a sudden Special Forces was there. 66 people died.
Yeah,
they say, and like I mentioned on the last episode, that I actually looked at it on Google Earth, and there's some structures on top of Archuleta Mesa, but who knows what's. But Doty admitted that the Air Force actually brought in a mining crew and was digging tunnels in there. So what was it? What were they doing that for?
Right. So it's somewhere out in the desert. It's a big.
It's on the mesa. It's in the hills up behind Los Alamos.
Okay.
They think the tunnels go from there to Los Alamos, and they also think that they're doing genetic research on humans.
Yeah.
That I don't know if you know how many people go missing every year.
Yes.
100. Like, it's staggering.
I do, yeah.
The amount of people that just go missing.
Yeah.
And I've had this discussion with Debbie. Like, well, where the hell are they?
There's lots of reasons for it, but yeah, that definitely.
But it's way too many for. It's way too many for.
Yeah.
It's way too many.
Yeah.
Where are all these people going? I mean,
there's
you
a
can't
lot
just
of human
anymore
trafficking.
the way things are with technology.
Yeah.
You can't just. It's hard to fall off the face of the earth.
There's a lot of human trafficking. There's a lot of, it's scary as shit, dude. There's a lot of organ harvesting.
Oh yeah,
that's a real thing. Like that's a real thing, dude. And
I'm glad I'm old now. They don't want my organ.
Yeah, I mean it's still right. If you I had a doctor somebody tell me said my heart's in good shape, so don't.
You're good. I don't curse. Knock on wood.
But
don't tell
that's
anybody.
a real thing, man. It's like, and it's. You're 100% right. It's like there's a lot of people disappearing, but some of it's probably that too. Some of it's probably alien abductions or the government doing it themselves or whatever. But I mean,
they're saying that
your imagination can only go so far. Who knows? It's
Dolce. They explain what's in the first 7.
How big of a place is it?
It's gigantic.
I mean, it's like, is it a big?
It's gigantic in the mesa, and they say below the 7th level is like the 7th one is. They call it the Nightmare Alley, where they've done genetic experiments with people like people with bat wings and crap like that.
Yeah.
That they're doing these experiments, like just strange.
Island of Dr. Moreau.
Oh yeah,
down there, yeah.
And under that is Alien City, and humans don't go there. It's just only aliens.
Yeah.
I don't know. Are we ever really gonna, with the way the government is, we can't even get an answer to 3 simple things that have fallen out of the sky. I don't know. I mean, I don't even know why they're balking at that. I'll go back to that. We can't find pieces of this. How many days has it been? It's been almost, not a week, but it's been 4 or 5 days.
It's been half a week, yeah. It's been half a week.
With our technology.
Well, that's the thing too, with the Chinese spy balloon again. We go back to there. Like they followed this thing. They said they tracked it from China all the way, like whatever its flight path was. I'd love to just see a diagram of the flight path of this thing, right? And then finally it hits the waters off the east coast of, South Carolina. And then they shoot it down. They had all kinds of time in the world to get a recovery crew out there and prepared, right? To the point that they could almost shot that thing down and landed it on their boat without ever hitting the water. Like we have that technology. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like almost to that point. Like they could have, it missed, but it fell right next to us. Let's scoop it up.
Yeah.
Right? They have that technology, that ability to do that. So Like, why is it such a challenge to recover stuff?
Well, that's what they did with the Chinese.
Yeah.
They waited till they got it in a spot, and they still can't get everything
And they
yet.
still can't get it, right? So it's like, I don't believe a word that those guys are saying. It's just, it's strange times we're living in that way because, just like we were talking about the stigma of, the UFO phenomena or what, like it's become pretty rapidly and pretty mainstream pretty rapidly, right? Like with the disclosure of some of these videos that we've seen, and you guys and I have talked before about, we think that they've got they think that they've got, like experts think they've got way more video of way clearer shots of phenomena, and I'm sure that they do. I mean, how could they not with all the technology that we have, right? So we're getting breadcrumbs compared to what the government probably really has on this subject.
But why don't they want to tell us?
I'll
ask you.
Who knows?
I'll ask you the question that everybody I talk to, I ask. I have one of the guys, another witness in Florida. I don't know if you've ever heard. He has seen light. He's seen this thing like 4 city blocks. He lives on Lake Okeechobee in Florida.
Yeah, I know it.
And he's a fisherman, and he lives on the lake.
It's like the biggest lake in Florida, yeah.
And he said this thing just flies. There's a nuclear facility there. So we're trying to figure out, well, is this thing interested in that for some reason? And he sends us pictures, but he's got this, he would, if he had better equipment, I think, but he sends me stuff periodically. Like, it's pretty constant. It's not like where you saw that and it's like, oh, we'll probably never see that again. Mm-hmm. He sees it pretty consistently, to the point where I think one of these shows should camp out there, camp at his house or something, because he's seeing it all the time. But
have you seen it? Has he shown you
pictures
of it?
I have the video, but it looks like little dots. It's at night always.
Yeah.
And it's just little, it looks like, I go, dude, are they drones? He goes, no, it's the way this thing's moving. It moves.
Yeah, and that, that's the thing, is that I see a lot of videos online, and you can just go on Twitter and look at, Google UFO, and you're going to see a bunch of stuff. Click on videos, a bunch of stuff's going to come
Yeah,
up.
but he, this guy's seeing...
There's a lot of stuff out there that doesn't have any kind of any of the characteristics that, like, Elizondo talked about. Like, what is it doing that's abnormal in the sky?
Yeah.
A lot of people see lights in the sky that aren't doing anything abnormal. And that's what you got to look for. Is I want to see videos of, or like, what's that light out there through the trees or above the trees? Do you see that? Do you see that? What is that? You see all these videos online, but it's not really doing anything. It's just sitting there, right? You're not seeing it like start and stop or up and move in any kind of way that is some of the descriptions that we've seen, like we've heard from the Navy, like they've seen these things doing out over the thing. So,
and I'll put that up in front of the camera. So
that's like his camera is moving.
He says it's. I go, is that your camera? He goes, no, I'm on my camera still. This thing's jumping.
That's
around.
Absolutely his camera.
Yeah, I know. It looks like it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But he'll send me those things. And I said, well,
He drinks.
The second one was right on top of it. Now I don't see it at all.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, see, that I'm super skeptical of a video like that, right? Because it's like, it's
hard to see any definition.
And that looks like camera, like... Unless your camera's on a tripod... and it's stationary.
Yeah, and even if you or I were to do it, it
would look exactly like that.
Yeah, because you can't hold the thing. So plus, if you're nervous, if the thing's really right there.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, you don't realize how much you're moving, but it's like we're not stationary as a species.
Yeah, but
so
he's a fan, and
that's cool. No, I'm not trying to dog you. I'm not trying to dog you, dude. I'm not trying to dog you, man.
Terry,
get a tripod.
We believe you, Terry.
Yeah, get a tripod, man. Set something
and a Nikon.
Up. Get a Nikon SLR. A buddy of mine, he lives in Florida. He moved to St. Augustine, Florida.
We were just there a couple weeks ago.
And he has, I don't know, some new Samsung phone. And he keeps doing these comparison pictures where he's like on the beach and he takes a picture of, and you're just looking at the waves and the water coming in, and he's like, what boat he posted one the other day. He's like, what boat and Pelican? And then he shows another picture after where he's zoomed in on his Samsung phone, and there's a boat and a Pelican, like a boat way the hell out there that you cannot see in the first picture. That he's zoomed way in, and there's also a Pelican like halfway in between.
I haven't heard of that.
Them.
Are you an Apple phone guy?
I'm an Apple phone guy. Yeah, I'm an iPhone guy. Yeah.
Do you have the new one, the newer one?
No, I have an 11, and then actually I have two. I'm a double Apple phone dude.
Yeah.
I have two. I have a work one, and I have a personal one.
Yeah, me too.
My personal one's an 11, and my new one that I think I just got a new one this year or the end of last year. I think it was a 13 that I got from work. They have
I got the 13,
technology.
and that's the one where it'll zoom pretty good, and not like that.
Yeah.
But it'll do 15.
Yeah,
15.
yeah. So I mean, the technology's pretty good. I mean, they make movies and stuff with phones now. It's just, but that's it, right? Is that we can't. And the more you're zoomed in on something, the more that movement is going to be magnified on your phone. So unless you have that thing stationary, and people are making movies, like really high quality, HD movies on their phones now, doing shows. I mean, somebody was talking about, actually it was Joe Rogan was talking about it in one of his interviews. I think it was with Matt Taibbi, his podcast with Matt Taibbi on Monday. And they were talking about this guy that he and I heard his podcast before, where like he went to a country, like he goes all these crazy places and eats the food. Mm-hmm. Did you hear that podcast? And but he talked about, so they went to Egypt, and Egypt confiscated all their equipment. Like he's like,
really? Why?
It's like a horrible place, Egypt, and they confiscated all their equipment. Probably just quoted some national security reason or whatever.
That's weird because people are always taking pictures of the pyramids.
Well, but these guys were like they have recording equipment and all kinds of stuff.
Camera
and it was a camera team or whatever. And, they're probably just taking it, sell it. I mean, a third world country.
Maybe.
You know what I mean? And so, but he said, what it is, they just said, screw it, we're going to make it with our iPhones now. Yeah. And it's great, and that's what it is, a YouTube show, and they do it with their iPhones.
Be careful with your iPhone, though, because what I heard today, that if you shake it too much, you'll break the camera.
Oh, really?
But obviously we're not going to shake it. One of my kids has a Harley, and when you buy there's a camera mount, and it said if you buy this mount, buy this other vibration dampening thing, because on iPhone the cameras will break.
I just noticed I dropped mine a couple times. What I do is with mine is I'll take them, and I always, when I get them brand new, I'll keep them in a case.
Yeah.
And then, but once, because they're so sexy, dude, but it's like once I've had it for a couple years, I take it out of the case and just use it without the case.
You don't care.
I don't care as much, right? And it's I like to see it.
It's so expensive. I hate to.
But I dropped it. I've dropped it a couple times, and I just noticed there's a little crack in the glass on the corner right here. I mean, it's so dumb, right?
I use the OtterBox, man.
Yeah,
it's
well,
indestructible.
Yeah,
but you can't charge it on in your car.
So I'll show you when we go. I'll show you how mine is.
Yeah,
I'll show you because it's the new OtterBox on the new.
Oh, can you charge it?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna have to check that out because I don't like the fact that I'm freaking lazy. I got the cords, who cares, right?
Yeah, I mean, no corny. So you probably noticed I got a new car.
What'd you get?
So it's a 2022 Ford Escape. It's my new company car.
Very nice.
So I sold my Volkswagen. I don't need that anymore. But I was like, because you mentioned the charging thing, I was going through the first day I got on, going through the packet, and I'm like, oh, it's got all this cool stuff. It's got the car charger, the wireless car charger thing. No, my car doesn't have none of that stuff. Are you kidding me? It's a company car.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like the base model. I mean,
do they buy it for you? But you have.
Yeah, it's 100%.
My last job,
for.
I had a company.
Yeah, everything's 100% paid for. Yeah, so which is fantastic. I'm so grateful.
It's a great perk.
It's a great gas, insurance. It's
I remember anything goes wrong. You take it
to the shops, pay it for. Absolutely, no, it's fantastic. It's a really cool mouse. And I mean, I had a company car. I've been driving a company car for 7 years, but it was a hand-me-down that got handed down again. It had 270,000 miles on it almost when I finally, And the only reason they got me a new car was because it wasn't passing smog, and it needed smog. It needed registration this month, February.
Yeah.
It wasn't passing smog, and it was a V6, so it needed 2 new catalytic converters and a bunch of other stuff. And so they're like, okay, we're just gonna get you a new one. It's cool.
Yeah,
so,
I love that. Was one of that was a great perk of my other job.
Yeah, so it's definitely.
So I went out and bought a 22 Ram Laramie.
Yeah,
It's pretty nice.
nice.
But it's got all the bells and whistles.
yeah.
You know?
It has some weird stuff, that I'm not used to. I'm really uncomfortable with keyless entry.
Yeah.
I'm old school like that. Like that keyless entry, keyless lock thing is.
You just touch it and it opens.
You can just touch it and it opens as long as you got the key in your pocket. You're right next to it. And the same with the lock. I'm really uncomfortable with that.
You know what I had a hard time getting used to? That push button start.
The push button start is okay. The push button, everything else is weird. Like the push button parking brake.
What about the shifting?
Knob,
the knob.
The knob on a transmission.
Yeah.
Everything's digital now. I do like the backup camera, which I didn't have. I do like it's got the blind spot markers on the mirror, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that's pretty neat.
New technology's good.
Yeah, some of the technology, but it's funny how some of the things that you would think would be standard technology are not on the car. Like it has LED tail lights, but not LED DRLs, right? Like why? Like every car has LED daytime running lights now.
Yeah.
Like why wouldn't it have daytime running lights now? It makes no sense. But whatever, I can't complain. It's a free car. It's brand new.
You don't pay for it. So who cares,
It's
right?
brand new car, so I'm not going to complain. But
So you golfing?
I've been golfing a lot. Still golfing.
I saw
yeah,
on Facebook.
So, I tried to golf. Actually, we had such a wet winter, right? I tried to golf the week between Christmas and New Year's. There was I took off for work, which I always do. There was one day that it didn't rain. I think that Wednesday, and I had to play. I need to play so bad. I'm on vacation. I got to play.
That chased the white ball.
It was so horrible. It was just
Where'd you
swampy
play?
and wet. I just went out to Mather, just because it was close and convenient, and it was horrible. But yeah, I play at least once a week. At least
Have you played Ansel Hoffman?
I have played Ansel Hoffman.
I heard it's got a lot of trees. Is
a
that a
couple
problem?
times. So I don't know about Ansel Hoffman, but so we played. They designed the holes around the trees. Depending on where you hit your ball, it's not.
I suck, so it's a real problem.
Yeah. So if you're gonna hit your ball under a tree, it can be a challenge. You hit your ball behind a tree, it obviously can be a challenge to advance your ball forward.
Yeah.
But it's part of what golf is, where they design the holes and the course. And I don't know, and I haven't played it. Those storms were heavy duty. So we played Hagen Oaks, the Mackenzie course at Hagen Oaks. We played 3 weeks ago, Saturday, 3 weeks ago. We kept seeing trees down, fresh cut stumps, stuff like that. Saw the marshal. He said they lost 43 trees out there in the storms. 43 trees.
Yeah.
Just got, that course is, that's, where that is. Top of Fulton Boulevard there. It's flat there.
Yeah.
It's all flat in that area. So it just got hammered by the storm. That's a lot. 43 trees. All oak trees that just, they get old and corky and they go down.
And your Niners?
The Niners lost NFC Championship game. That was tough, but they had a hell of a season, man. One of the things in my old age, Doug, that I'm learning, you got to enjoy the ride. It's more about the ride than it is the end. It's about the journey, not not the destination kind of a thing. And that was a hell of a ride for the Niners. Obviously, with that young quarterback getting hurt in the first series, you'd love to see him have a chance to play that whole game and see what happens, because it was a pretty good game there. It was 7-7 in the second quarter, and it was like the ref decided this game's too boring. We're gonna have to start throwing some penalties, and so they did. But whatever. But
yeah, I
really learned that years ago when the Warriors were really starting to win, and they had that season where they set the record for wins when they beat they had 73 wins or whatever, and they were undefeated in the playoffs until the finals against Cleveland, and they lost that series in 7 games to Cleveland, and you know what, it was like, why be upset that they didn't, win the last game of the season when the journey was just so magnificent and so much fun, and that really just changed me as a sports fan. I was like, for the first time, I wasn't upset that they lost, like that my team lost the championship. It was really just what a magnificent run that they had, and I think that's probably more what sports are about, and I think that's what what people need to do more of in today's world, because everybody's really latching themselves on to. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day about how social media and the internet's affected
It's changed
people.
things.
How it's just changed people and society, and it's everybody hitches their wagon to this one thing, and it's like, it's like that thing has to be the best and the most successful, or it's a direct result, or it has a direct impact on their personality and who they are, and it's really not even that. It's their social media profile, right? Like you're I'm the heavy duty 49er fan, 49er this, 49er that, and then they lose and people take pot shots at you and it hurts your feelings and whatever, and it's like there's a lot of, and like I'm a grown man, right? I'm not gonna let any of that stuff get to me. I don't care. First of all, I'm not gonna be like that on social media. Secondly, if I was,
I never comment.
You know what I mean? That wasn't, and I wouldn't let it get to me even if I was. But there's a lot of people out there that are like,
especially sports. So I'm a Raider fan, so even the ride has sucked lately. And it's, but I've got family members that'll say, I don't care who wins as long as it's not the Raiders. It's like,
well, it's like I got this one buddy who's like, I'm not gonna. He's like, I don't. As long as the 49ers lose, I don't care. He's a huge Raider fan.
I never act like that.
Whatever. I snoozed him for 30 days on social media. I don't want to have nothing to do with you during.
There's no reason for it. Because everybody
it's
just. I usually say, you got a good like Purdy, that quarterback. I love the fact the Raiders had a good rookie quarterback too that came in.
Yeah, he did. He played great against the Niners. They almost beat the Niners. I did not think they had the heart left to play in that game after they benched Carr like that. I thought the Niners were going to stomp them, and I was like, whoa,
I couldn't believe
what is going on here? And
but
people are like that with politics and stuff too, and it's like they hitch their wagons to this one thing, and it's like, it's us no matter what against the world, and it's like, it's not like that, man. That's not how life is, and it's really. It's sad, and it's also scary right now because people are doing some drastic things to one another, and there's a lot of otherism and stuff like that. But getting back to like the UFO topic, where you and I, right? So I'm 53, you're 10 years older than me, and it's like we've come a long way in our lifetimes to the point where, like 10, 15, 25, 30 years ago, do you think that it would be like the government would be releasing, videos of stuff and creating these, what Harry Reid's done with
when he worked with Reed and Bob Bigelow down in the Skinwalker. Do you watch Skinwalker Ranch?
Yeah, I do watch it. Yeah,
what do you think of that show?
You know what? I'll tell you what. I think that something weird has gone on there. I think that I really liked yours and Bill's critiques of it because I don't ever think that they took stuff in the right like whenever they found something that was interesting, they took it in the wrong direction. I felt like
it was odd.
It was odd. They kind of took it in the wrong direction. Like they needed to go further in that same direction. Yeah. And I think that there's some possibility that there was something in the mesa there, and I think it has been destroyed and blown up and hidden. Yeah. And the other thing, I think that there may be a good possibility that there's some sort of portal above that place. Yeah. That there's some kind of abnormality in the atmosphere above that place but it's like I said, that every time they've sort of identified that something weird is happening in a certain place, they've taken the into a different direction. I'd love to see them do more stuff in the sky above it, figure out a way to, they did so many things with like shooting the rockets and the lasers up into it, and those were like malfunctioning, and they couldn't quite get it right, and then they just walk away from it, right? And
have you watched Oak Island?
I watched Oak Island a few episodes, but I couldn't. But I know what you're saying.
It's Oak Island with UFOs,
Or
Yeah.
with the supernatural,
and they're going to want to
whatever
milk
it
that
is,
thing, and
Yeah,
you know, it's we're still going to watch it, and you're still going to, if you listen to the show,
yeah,
I'll probably bring Debbie because Debbie is like, oh my god, we're not going to be able to
yeah,
scientifically, it's not going to be the same read because I don't have an eye like Bill had for the science, but still a lot of stuff just doesn't make sense.
You know what is when all that started? I'll never forget. So television, the model for television changed, right? So television used to be. We talked about Star Trek earlier, right? It
Oh,
was
yeah.
like every episode was a different story.
Yeah.
It was like a different story. Every hour episode was a different story. It was like
Yeah.
like an hour-long movie of every story with these same characters and everything. And it all changed with that show Lost. J.J. Abrams and that show Lost changed it. And what they did is they changed it to a format where it was all the same characters in the same story with all these new things happening to them all the time, and that were leading you down a road. But they never took you to a destination. They just kept pulling you down the road, right?
Yeah.
Like that show got ridiculous, and I stopped watching it at the end. And that's the model the model for television now is to keep the viewer captivated. To keep the viewer captivated and keep them coming back without ever really giving them the meat that's on, with the carrot that's on the end of the stick.
It's different now.
So
it's a generational thing.
Yeah.
I think it's just
Yeah.
for us. We're born more or less the same era,
Yeah.
and one thing that Corey, who I have on the show, talks about, he's a huge Star Trek fan.
Yeah.
And
How old is he?
I don't really know. I don't know. I don't even know exactly how old he is. I should look.
Well, I just mean like generationally.
Yeah, he's close.
Because like we
He's
were
close
talking
to
earlier
you.
about,
He's
like
probably
I see how like
I don't think he's as old as you are.
born in the 50s, like
Yeah.
the Star Trek generation thing. Like for me, certainly I had access to Star Trek. I watched all the original ones. Watched the movies, right? When they came back, started making all the movies in the 80s.
Yeah.
But I was more the Star Wars generation,
Yeah.
growing up in the 70s. And, then Battlestar Galactica came out. And actually the first show that I remember, like, really being intrigued by, like, science fiction was Space 1999.
Oh, yeah.
And the Eagle. Like, that was I was like, I love that crap.
Barbara
that
Bain.
show. Yeah.
Barbara Bain, and who was the guy?
But I didn't get, but what I was getting at, and that's why I say he's a huge Star Trek guy. I didn't really ever get into the other shows, right? Like Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, all that stuff. Like I didn't watch. I've watched the movies.
Him once in a while, but
yeah, like
he was telling me the newer Star Trek. I'm pretty sure it's a Star Trek episode, one of the newer series that they have.
There's a new woke one on Paramount Plus.
Yeah, and he says they're in their hall. He jokes about it. He goes, yeah, they're in the hallway talking about their feelings.
Yeah.
It's
like woke, right? It's like
it's
a trend.
I don't watch them because I'm like I don't like them.
Yeah,
I've tried.
Yeah, so I never got into all those. I mean, I've watched like the new movies with like Chris Pine as Kirk.
I love those.
And with J.J. Abrams did those films, and those were good. Speaking of films, science fiction films, did you watch? There was some great stuff happening on like cable television this weekend. Like, I've got all the stuff, right? I've got the HBOs and the Netflix and the Paramount.
I spend way too much money.
Yeah, my cable bills.
Streaming.
But I'm such a sucker for like. And Raquel laughs at me. Raquel's my significant other about like, watching the same thing over and over again, like every time.
Yeah, I'll do that too.
It's like there was some really good sci-fi stuff on this weekend, and it was like I watched some of my favorite movies were on. Cowboys and Aliens.
Oh yeah,
was on. That's
Harrison Ford
and James Bond, Daniel Craig, and a bunch of other. Walt Goggins is in that, and some other really good. Actors, and I watched it. That's a great show, right? That's Jon Favreau, right? That did that. Who's done so much great stuff, right? He's doing The Mandalorian, right? We're talking about that, but one of the things that just at the end, I was watching it, and I watched I watched like the first half, the second half of it, and I caught on it, and then it came on later. So then I watched the whole thing, right? Because it's like a marathon on that movie, then another movie, then another movie. It was cool. Aliens were great, all that stuff, great concept. Why are the aliens from the future or wherever they're from, right, from light years away, why are they using fossil fuel technology to like power their spacecraft?
Was that Cowboys and Aliens?
Yeah, but they're shooting lasers.
Yeah.
But they're powering their little spaceships that they're flying around snatching people.
You're not supposed to think about that.
Clearly with fossil fuels,
yeah,
right?
You don't think about
you
the
can see
technology.
the exhaust coming out. And then at the end, when their giant craft takes off, it's the traditional rocket with extended boosters. They're, and instead of some weird new nuclear.
But just floating up wouldn't be cool looking.
Yeah, it was just like it just looked like the SpaceX had sent. It was just.
And it wouldn't be like that.
But and so that was on. I watched Spielberg's War of the Worlds again, which was really really good. And then I watched one of my favorite science fiction films, because I always believe that, like, when we do come face to face with aliens, it's not going to be anything like we thought it was going to be, right? It's going to be weird, and it's going to be different, and it's going to be nothing like it was portrayed on TV. So I'm always kind of really fascinated by new visions of people, and it's Tom Cruise in Edge of Tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. The one where the time thing?
Yeah, exactly. And it's so good. And the aliens are so unique and original, and the concept is, it's far-fetched, but it's very unique and very, like I said, I think it's going to be so different that it can actually, it's captivating, right? Because it's just so different from anything that we've ever seen before. Those, they call them the...
I don't remember what
I can't even remember, but they were really wild, right? Because there's like the soldier ones, and then there was the one that if you killed them and got the blood on you, then you were able to do the time thing, and then there was the thing that they killed at the end. But the mimics, they call them mimics, right? So yeah, that was really really cool. So that's what are some of your favorite like sci-fi films?
Just watched Hangar 18.
The original?
This week, the original Hangar 18 with Darren McGavin.
And is that the one with the cat with the necklace?
No, this is the one where it's really kind of not goofy, but it's they were in the space shuttle, and there was a UFO out there, and they went to launch the satellite, and it hits the UFO. The UFO comes down to Earth, doesn't crash, but it has a controlled landing, like an auto landing.
Yeah.
And they drag the thing to what it's probably Wright-Patterson Air Force Base or whatever in Hangar 18.
Yeah.
That's always the myth or the conspiracy theory is that Hangar 18 at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is where they keep the UFOs.
Yeah.
So they get it there, and then there's 2 astronauts that land. And, of course, they're trying to kill them because they know there's an election coming, a lot of political.
Yeah, what year is that film from?
Dude, it's probably 70-something.
Yeah.
It's old. But, those are the older ones. 20 Million Miles to Earth. Harryhausen's Stop Action. It's goofy looking and looks... But it's a good... I like stories, as long as it's got a good story.
Sure, yeah.
We were just... a couple months ago, we were just talking about... Because I'd have a group text with friends, and I would put it on there. And, I'm watching, 20 Million Miles to Earth, But, yeah, it's always with something new. They got a Donald Driver. Is his name Donald Driver? That's the Packer dude. Adam Driver, right?
Adam Driver.
Yeah, and he's
that looks good. I know what you're talking about.
He went back in 65 million years ago in a spaceship and lands and.
Well, that's right up your alley, right? Because you sort of believe that this whole the extraterrestrials.
Yes, the extraterrestrials.
Yeah.
I'm almost done. People have been listening to me talk about this book for months.
So you think that they're from the future?
That's my theory, that the grays and things are just us that have evolved over hundreds of thousands of years.
It's a plausible theory. Right?
You know,
that's what Joe Rogan thinks too, right? He's like,
I don't know if Rogan thinks that. I haven't
he
heard him
does.
talk
He's
about
like,
it.
he's like, that's just a future version of us.
Yeah.
Like he's like, what this is? He's like, that's what this phone is doing to us.
Yeah.
Like that's what like his philosophy is like. What is like if you were an outsider looking in at the human life, like what is this life form doing? Well, all the things they do, what they really do is they create better things.
Yeah.
Right, and that's what like what we do is we're always striving to create a better whatever. Right, that's why we have a new phone every year. That's why we buy a new phone every year. That's because that's why we have all these new cars every year, and that's why we're always making better things. And technology, it's like eventually, like we're going to become this. Eventually, what's technology is going to become integrated into us.
Yeah.
Like there's going to be a biomechanical interface with technology, whether that's a chip in your brain or whatever it is, and then you're going to be. He's like, eventually we're going to become genderless, and it's like all these things that it's like we're going to become this technological being, just like that in the future, like that. And so it does there's some plausibility to that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple different theories, but, it's, I don't know, it's hard to say. I mean, if you think about it, generations, just in the generation before us, my dad had, I don't know about you, my arms aren't very hairy, but your father might have had a lot of hair on his arms.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or more hair on his face, or, it's already, we're seeing evolution.
Yeah,
it seems to me.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
In one generation,
things,
it's
how our environment changes, like who we are. Like people don't have to, right? The majority of the population doesn't have to work as physically hard to survive that they used to 100 years ago. So things like that are definitely going to change, right? And that's why Well, that's why I have to go to the gym more than because I don't work on a farm.
Well, people aren't talking to each other like this.
People are talking to. I mean,
they're just texting on their phones.
There's a lot of different ways, but just the overall satisfaction that people like. I mean, even there's people like incels, right? Like people like there's this category of people called involuntary celibates. That like they don't like they just consider themselves like not worthy of whatever of human affection or whatever it is, or sexual affection, whatever. But part of it probably is because they can just go on the internet and satisfy themselves sexually or whatever. It's
another
weird,
issue. Pornography.
It's just a weird thing. Like no time in our history has been like pornography has been so readily accessible.
Yeah, and that's the problem.
It is a problem. I don't think it's a good thing at all. But it's
it's going to be. It's going to eventually affect the.
So here's why.
The population.
So here's why I don't think that though. That it's people from the future coming, because of that younger Dryas stuff that we were thinking.
Yeah.
The reality is, and I think it's coming, and I think one of the reasons that it could be happening sooner than we know, because if the government knew. If the world powers knew that we were facing imminent destruction from an from a comet, from an asteroid, or whatever, they would not tell us. But but things would get really, really weird politically, right, beforehand. Like because there's a lot of things happening like in the political climate in the world that are just kind of like make you go, what? Like what is going on? And so. I think that when you start talking about, the Earth and, we're talking about Alcatraz, we're talking about not Alcatraz, but Atlantis, the Younger Dryas impact, we're talking about, cataclysmic events that happen to this planet that we call home.
Yeah.
And they happen a lot more frequently than people want to.
And you're not going to
realize.
How come we don't see all this major technology? Because it got wiped out.
Exactly, right.
And
I think that's, and then we start over again. And, there's a few people that survive in caves or whatever, and that's where we are right now. And I think that we're long overdue for not only something like that, but I don't know how much research you've done into, when the polar axis flips.
Yeah.
It happens. Like every 600,000 years it happens. Yeah. And it hasn't happened in like 800,000 years.
Yeah, so it'll probably happen at some point.
Like we're way overdue for it, right? And like these cataclysmic events that happen to our planet, like we're way overdue for one right now. And so, if there was advanced people that lived here on the Earth, because if you think about it, man, it's like sometimes if you just break it down to like, and it's hard because we think, well, we find, ruins from ancient Greece and Rome and all these places, and then we think of these that history. That's like 2,000 years ago, man. And so, but if something, everything that we have in front of us, around us, in front of all the time, like this is all made from the earth. Everything. Yeah. This microphone, the metal, the polyester, the rubber, the wood, right? If we got hit by an asteroid or a comet that just completely turned the Earth into a fireball, over 100% of its, like there would be nothing left. Like it would be gone, right? And that's happened before to this planet.
Several times.
Nothing
you can do about
it. Every day they're learning that more and more stuff, that this planet is way older than it, and it's like, so that's why I don't think they're from the future, because I don't think that we'll ever get that far advanced. Because I think that the thing is like if you look at the Milky Way galaxy, right, the rendition of the galaxy, it's like the big black hole cluster in the middle and all the stuff spiraling around it.
Yep.
Like if they've talked about like the axis, right? And so where we are in our little solar system compared to the galaxy, like we're moving into, like you move up and down, like you don't always stay in the same place. You kind of move into that area where it's a little bit more dense with material that's swirling around in space, and that's probably about every 600,000 years when we get blasted by a comet, when we get hammered by something. It's like we don't, and it's like the Mayans predicted 2012 was the year or whatever, but it's, they probably ballparked it to some extent.
Missed it to a certain extent.
So that's just kind of where I am at on that stuff. I just don't think that, and maybe one of the reasons that we're seeing increased activity with UAPs is because they know that it's the end of times, end of days for us.
Into this civilization.
Right? End of days of their, pet project or whatever. I mean, they probably seeded us here or whatever. Who knows? But, I mean, it wouldn't be... Anything's possible, right? I mean, it's like we don't...
Well, that's why we enjoy doing this, because we know that anything's possible.
Yeah.
We just want to know something.
Yeah. So.
All right, sir. Let's go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks again for joining me.
All right, Doug. So
appreciate it.
I would just like to say, rest in peace, Dr. Bill. I'm sorry for the loss of your friend.
Thank you.
One of the things that I've noticed from the last couple episodes that he's been, since his passing, is that, you have excluded an important part of the show. And so I would just like, if you would provide me the honor to be the first one to say, since Dr. Bill had left, and I hope you continue it.
Yeah.
Watch the skies.
Watch the skies. Thank you very much,
Thanks,
JC.
my friend.
Appreciate it. Thanks for listening to the latest episode of the Alien Pro Podcast. See us on Facebook at Alien Pro Podcast, all podcast platforms, Instagram, Facebook. Check out our website. Alien Pro Podcast has all of our episodes. And again, as JC said, watch the skies.
Watch the skies.